Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Midlands online worship service. I'm Shannon Sonoris, Worship Associate for this morning's service. If you haven't already, please type into the chat box who you are and who you brought with you today. Unitarian Universalism is a welcoming and inclusive religion. It encourages us to keep open hearts and minds because our own experience, conscience, and reason are the final authorities in religion. It affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person and that we're all connected to each other and the earth. If you are visiting today, a special welcome to you. We appreciate you spending some of your Sunday morning with us. If you have any questions, please let us know in the chat box, by phone, or through our Facebook page. If you've been attending for some time and have come to feel that this is your spiritual home and you're considering becoming a member of the fellowship, please contact our minister, Eric Severson, or a member of the welcome team, or let us know of your interest in the chat box. Welcome, one and all. If you have a chalice or a candle at home and would like to join in our chalice lighting remotely, now would be a good time to get that ready. And if you would like to join in sharing joys and sorrows this morning, you'll want to find the participant icon to raise your hand for that. And we will move on now to announcements, which you will see on your screen. Next week's service will be all Michigan UU service. What have we discovered about remaining hopeful in the midst of the unknown that we can sustain in the future? Our beloved community of UU Michiganders and their friends and family will come together and worship on Sunday, July 12th at 10:30 a.m. Please join us in this precious opportunity like no other to explore hope as we share sacred space across the internet of spirit. See the newsletter for details about how to connect. The fellowship board met 2 times in June and has provided a summary of their meeting. You can find the summary in the weekly newsletter or in our Facebook group. In religious education news, we're no longer holding Sunday religious education classes or regular hangout sessions in July, but we will be holding a weekly virtual camp. Each week we will have a take-home activity, which we will share with each other the following week during a 1-hour Zoom call. This week's take-home activity is all about the 7 wonders of Midland. Check out the UUFOM Parents Circle group for more. Our next call is Wednesday at 11 a.m. Contact Heather Cleland, host, for the Zoom link. Our UUFOM children and youth are placing their handprints on our white brick flower tower. Contact Vicki Reidelberger this week if you weren't able to add your handprints last week. And all of the announcements are available in our weekly Candle Flame newsletter. During the summer months, the weekly Candle Flame will be pared down. New article submissions will begin again in September. If you have a candle or a chalice at home and would like to light it now, please do so. And please join in reading our chalice lighting words today by Maureen Killoran. Love is the aspiration, the spirit that moves and inspires this faith we share. Rightly understood, love can nurture our spirits and transform the world. May the flame of this chalice honor and embody the power and the blessing of the love we need, the love we give, the love we are challenged always to remember and to share.
Our opening words today are The Constellations of Our Lives by Karen G. Johnston, settled minister at the Unitarian Society of New Brunswick, New Jersey. Humans make maps of stars, choosing some stars, ignoring others, to project our imaginations onto the heavens. These maps shift over time across cultures. Names change for the same assemblage of bright points. Drinking Gourd, Big Dipper, Plough, Lost Hunters, Saptarishi. Humans make constellations by connecting stars. Humans make meaning by connecting stories. Story to narrative to story. Some blaze bright, some are faint. Most are backdrop to the great and mundane human unfolding. Let us imagine the stories of our lives as a starry universe above our heads. As leaders of this congregation, we are tasked and trusted to draw constellations in this, our beloved small universe. May the stories we connect draw constellations that reflect a shared ministry that calls out to the best in us.
Thank you, Sarah. Now with your mics muted, please join in singing our pre-recorded opening hymn, For All That Is Our Life.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs that others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Welcome. So today's story is A Heavy Load from Zen Shorts by John Muth. The day after that, Carl went to visit Stillwater. Michael said I couldn't bring over our stuff to go swimming. I'm mad at Michael. He's always telling me what to do, so I brought everything. Said Stillwater. It's a little pool. I don't know if all those things will fit. Let's see, Carl said. Let's see, said Stillwater. Stillwater looked at the pool. The things can go swimming, but we can't, he said. I brought too much stuff, said Carl. That's okay, said Stillwater. I'll help you carry it home later. Why does Michael always have to tell me what to do? Carl said. If he were here, I would climb up really high and I would jump on him just like this. And I'd do a big smash like this. Later, Carl and Stillwater had tea. Carl, said Stillwater, you spent the whole day being angry with Michael. Did you even notice how much fun we had? Carl watched the steam rise up from his cup. I'm sorry that I brought all this stuff, Carl said. You don't need to be sorry, said Stillwater. Right now you need to carry. Hold on tight and I will tell you a story. Once upon a time, two traveling monks reached a town where there was a young woman waiting to step out of her sedan chair. The rains had made deep puddles, and she couldn't cross across without spoiling her silken robes. She stood there looking very cross and impatient. She was scolding her attendants that they had nowhere to place her packages that they held for her, so they couldn't help her across the puddle. The old younger mouse monk noticed the woman, but she said nothing, walked by. The older monk quickly picked her up and carried her on his back and transported her across the water and put her down on the other side. She didn't even thank the older monk. She just shoved him away and departed. As they continued on their way, the young monk was brooding and preoccupied. For several hours, unable to hold his silence, he spoke out. That woman out back there, she was very selfish and rude, but you picked her up on your back and you carried her. And then she didn't even thank you. The older monk looked back at him. I set the woman down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her? Do you think that you have carried it long enough? Asked Stillwater. Yes, said Carl. Good, said Stillwater. And that is how Carl and Stillwater became friends, and Carl learned to put down the heavy load of his anger and have fun. Thank you.
Our reading today is from Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay, Circles. All the argument and all the wisdom is not in the encyclopedia or the treatise on metaphysics or the body of divinity, but in the sonnet or the play. In my daily work, I incline to repeat my old steps and do not believe in remedial force, in the power of change and reform. But some Petrarch or Ariosto, filled with new wine of his imagination, writes me an ode or a brisk romance full of daring thought and action. He smites and arouses me with his shrill tones, breaks up my whole chain of habits, and I open my eye on my own possibilities. He claps wings to the sides of all the solid old lumber of the world, and I am capable once more of choosing a straight path in theory and practice. Let's share now an interlude, Blues for a Fantasy, improvised, played, and recorded by John Van Riggenmorter, with images by Tony Tienda.
John, for sharing your art and music with us. So today, I promised you the best fiction ever. I fear that was false advertising. I can't really tell you about the best fiction. There have been many books, stories, and movies that have had a particularly strong effect on me. Some of them have portrayed characters with different cultural backgrounds than mine. Others have featured characters with different sexualities, races, abilities, or economic realities. These books opened my awareness to many different ways of being human. Some tales portray a utopia full of cooperation or amazing technology that I aspire to see in reality. Others depict dystopian oppression, violence, selfishness, or cruelty that I am motivated to work to prevent where I can. And this is just a small sampling. What's more, there is so much out there I haven't read or watched and never will. Besides, taste can vary. Just because I loved a story doesn't mean it will speak to someone else. But what I really want to do here is to highlight how one particular book, and reading fiction in general, has had a really strong effect on how I perceive the world and has helped me build the values that brought me to Unitarian Universalism. The most important thing that reading fiction has brought me is undoubtedly a greater capacity for empathy, particularly empathy toward those who might seem very different from me. Empathy and compassion are important foundational values in Unitarian Universalism. It takes empathy to live out our first principle and treat every living person in a way that respects their inherent worth and dignity. Furthermore, how could we have our second principle of justice, equity, and compassion in human relationships without empathy? How would we even recognize justice, equity, or compassion without empathy? Obviously, we can never really understand another's life through fiction. However, I think the gains in insight and empathy are worthwhile. Without the ability to understand vicariously the experiences of another person in a different circumstance, our search for justice and equity will likely center more on atonement for past transgressions, rather than on reimagining and recreating the world according to justice. In the 6th or 7th grade, I read the book Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. I expect many of you are familiar with this book or the movie made from it. Charlie is a man with an intellectual disability. He is selected for an experimental medical treatment that will raise his IQ. It works, and over months he becomes a genius and is able to further pursue research regarding his treatment. Part of this work is observing and working with the rat test subject Algernon that was used for the pre-human medical trials. Algernon begins to decline, and Charlie realizes that the benefit of the treatment is temporary and will result in his untimely death. Unsurprisingly, he was much happier before the beginning of the treatment than as the book continues. In the beginning, he has a positive feeling about himself and his work cleaning at a bakery. He was also kinder before his treatment because he looks back on how he was treated before the experiment and recognizes how unfair it was. This makes him a bit prickly. He sees that his former colleagues at the bakery were laughing at him and not with him. He realizes he was not given a real choice in participating in the experiment because no one bothered to help him understand what risks were involved, physical, social, or emotional. As a child, I was very good at school, and so I placed an overemphasis on how important it was to be smart. I primarily thought of myself as smart and wanted to be friends with other smart kids. In my own head, I saw this as wanting to have a strong connection and commonality with the other kids who were my friends. But as an adult, it seems like a form of snobbery and unfairly valuing certain traits over others. It's true that as a child, I often felt mistreated or snubbed by my peers, but as I compared childhood experiences with others, I think many children feel this way. It also seems likely that any actual exclusion was at least in part a reaction to my own attitudes. I tended to be impatient with others who took longer to learn and slowed down the pace of class, and clueless about how my impatience might affect them. And school is where we do most of our socializing as kids. Reading about Charlie helped me develop empathy for people who did not have the same abilities as I did, though at times I still need to consciously remind myself to put this empathy into action. Imagining Charlie's experience also helped me develop important insights into my perceptions of self. One of the most intriguing parts of this book is that Charlie's increase in IQ is transient. He experiences the arc of gaining and losing intelligence and realizes that it is happening. As I read, I imagined being in Charlie's place as he watches Algernon's decline and knowing I would be able to understand less and less each day. While a medical treatment to increase IQ remains mostly science fiction, there are many real and common reasons that people see declines in mental function, such as disease or traumatic brain injury. Was Charlie any less worthy of compassion and fair treatment at the beginning and end of the book than in the middle? Would I be any less worthy of respect and self-respect if I were injured and lose my academic skills? One of my acquaintances from college actually had that happen to her last year. She acquired a TBI from a sports injury that seriously inhibited her ability to do her job as a professor for over a year. It was unpleasant for her, and she may see some permanent changes. Yet those around her continued to show her love and compassion, and after full, then partial medical leave, she persists to work with accommodations despite increased frustration around doing her work. Is a lack of intellectual ability any different than not being good at something else, say like sports? I've never been good at sports. Is losing intellectual ability different from sustaining an injury and being forced to cut back on physical activity? In describing this transient situation regarding ability, this book helped me understand that a person's self-worth need not be and should not be tied to what they can do at all. The first principle tells us that people have inherent worth and dignity. I believe this is the root of a stable, non-contingent sense of self-worth. Flowers for Algernon was also pivotal because it, like much other science fiction, poses what-if questions. What if society could eliminate cognitive disabilities? Would that be a good thing? How should we treat people with disabilities? Though the book is not dystopian in scope because it focuses on one small possibility, it raises the terrifying specter of eugenics and the harm it caused. It is well known that in eugenics programs in this country, people were forcibly sterilized for not being desirable. If society obtains the ability to tweak various traits, who decides what becomes desirable? Who gets the benefit? And who pays the price? In an interview with Locus magazine, the author described how editors wanted him to give Charlie a happy ending with the treatment an unmitigated success. His refusal to do so and his tenacity in seeking a publisher who would present the story with its full arc indicate to me that he is not suggesting we seek to eliminate cognitive disabilities or define desirable versus less desirable traits for others. In my interpretation, the author is making a statement about how we should treat people with disabilities with compassion, dignity, and respect. It is not the medical treatment that disconnects Charlie from his former coworkers, but rather their treatment of him when they acted as though he was somehow not worthy of compassion and respect. It was not necessarily wrong for the doctors in the book to convince a person with intellectual disability to participate in their experiment, but it was wrong for them to do so without finding a way to make sure the patient really understood and could live with all the possible outcomes. These kinds of ethical and moral questions, so often asked by science fiction, lead us to envision different worlds. Imagine Charlie's world progressing through additional trials to make the experimental treatment safe and permanent. That could be a world where there are no cognitive disabilities. Or it could become a world where treatments are available to some who have needs and remain out of reach for others. Compare it to a world where we treat people with disabilities with dignity and respect. Imagine a world where we treat everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of who they are, what their circumstances are, and what they can or cannot do. I know which world seems more just to me. The worlds envisioned by science fiction may be better or worse than our world, depending on the affordances or constraints. The way we envision these worlds informs our own creative choices as we live our lives. To me, this is what it means to strive for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. This is a major reason that I keep reading fiction, and science fiction in particular. It helps me continue to see new possibilities for creating equity and justice. And it helps me see the future I want to avoid at all costs. How can each of us do the creative work of reimagining our world to be more equitable and just?
Thank you, Sarah. We affirm the work of this fellowship and its mission through our financial contributions. We continue to rely on you paying your pledges and providing what you would otherwise drop in the collection plate. While our in-person activities may be suspended, our staff continue working hard to provide the services we need. They and the bills still need to be paid. Please give as generously as you can, and may what you give bring you joy. Please take this time to write a check if you wish and mail it to the fellowship at 6220 Jefferson Avenue, Midland, Michigan 48640. To donate online, please stay after the service for instructions. Another option is to set up bank auto pay, which can be arranged by contacting our treasurer, Vicki Rothar. Thank you for your generosity. As we hear Prayer for a Sunny Day, improvised, played, and recorded by John Van Rigemorter, you may enjoy switching to gallery view so you can see everyone's faces. Thank you, John. Now, with your mic still muted, please join in singing our pre-recorded closing hymn, Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
I love that hymn. Our closing words today are from What I Assume You Shall Assume by Ken Liu. Words do matter. Their magic comes from one mind reaching another across miles and years. And what one assumes, the other shall also assume. And what one believes, the other shall also believe. Words take root and grow in the hearts of people. And from there, faith springs eternal. You're muted, Shannon.
Thank you, Sarah, again. And the words for extinguishing our chalice today are by Maddie Cephantis. I invite you to read them along with me. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again.
Thank you to everyone who helped make this service possible today. And thank you all for joining us. If you can stay to chat, great. If you need to go, we understand. Whatever you may encounter in the coming week, please know that the love of the community goes with you.